Hello, we are from DataSisters, and in this video, we're going to explain about our insights that we found from analyzing the dataset provided by SVH. And here, we're going to explain about our insight, which is how surprisingly safer conditions can show deadlier than expected mortality rates. This is the first graph. And in this graph, we can see a comparison between mortality rates in the state of Kansas compared to the national average in the USA. And so we can see a few diseases being highlighted here, which is the respiratory disease, infectious, and the cardiovascular. For the respiratory disease, there are about 14.2% chances of death, whereas the national average, which the external data we gained from the World Health Organization, shows only about 6%. And in the infectious disease, there are 17.2% of death, which is much higher than the national average, which is only about 2%. On the other hand, for the cardiovascular disease, the mortality rate in the state of Kansas is much lower than the national mortality rates, which is also typically the leading cause of death, shows that only 8.6% mortality rates for the state of Kansas, which is much lower than the average 27% for the entirety of the USA.
So we are now moving to the seasonal patterns. Now from the first chart, we can see that the number of disease cases changes depending on the season. Like for example, infectious disease and respiratory problem tend to increase during certain times of the years, especially in winter and fall. This shows that the season plays an important role in influencing what kind of illnesses people experience. However, this pattern becomes more serious when we focus on older people. In the second chart, we can see that the death rates among the elderly are higher during winter and spring and become lower during summer and the fall. This means that the seasonal changes don't just affect how many people get sick, but also how severe the outcomes can be.
Based on our work with the dataset, we reached a point where we asked, why do some diseases that are considered low risk still lead to death? So we plotted the donut chart above here, and we can see the comparison between low risk and high risk patients. In high risk, 17.7% patients are deceased, which makes sense. But what's surprising us is that even in low risk, there is still 0.606% which didn't make it. And so we dug into what's driving that, and we found that elderly patients have over 10 times higher odds of death compared to non-elderly patients, meaning age is a much stronger predictor than the diagnosis itself. Lifestyle factors like smoking show limited impact here, while age plays the dominant role.
Okay, next, let's look at patient. Even though they're considered low risk, we can see that emergency admissions still have the highest death rate, about 6.3%. That actually quite surprising compared to other type like elective, which is only 1%. We tested this statistically, and the result come from it. Admission type does affect survival even in a low risk patient. And now for the high risk patient, the difference is even more obvious. Patient under not applicable had the best survival around 97.7%, but urgent and trauma center only about 77 to 79. And something statistically significant, and the association is actually a bit stronger here. And so basically the admission type does matter, but and it makes sense. Imagine someone comes in just because of a coke, but turn out their oxygen is dropping, so they get admitted as emergency, and that's the emergency case are usually more critical than they first appear.
What we found challenges common assumptions. Diseases we expect to be the deadliest aren't always the ones who are driving mortality. In Kansas, respiratory and infectious diseases surpass expectations, while the cardiovascular diseases fall below them. Mortality also follows clear seasonal patterns. peaking in colder months, particularly among the elderly. And importantly, even the low-risk conditions are not really safe, driven more by age and admission urgency than the disease label itself. This highlights the importance of viewing risk more holistically. For example, elderly patients, seasonal spikes, and emergency situations that may require closer attention, even when the conditions are considered low risk. At the same time, it underscores the value of early awareness and timely care, especially for older individuals and during higher risk seasons, as even seemingly mild conditions can lead to the serious outcomes. Thank you.